Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about my undergraduate physics teaching. My name is Naveen Kumar Nishal. I am from Department of Physics, Indian Institute of Technology, Patna. The outline of my seminar contains 4 parts. First part is about myself. Second is about the classroom session. Third is about the research work which I am involved in. And fourth part is about achievements. So first about myself. Currently I am working as an associate professor in the physics department since December 2015. Before that I was an assistant professor during December 2008 to 2015, and prior to that I was serving as assistant professor at IIT Guwahati from June 2007 to December 2008. In between I have been academic visitor to Department of Physics, Capital Normal University, Beijing, China, and a researcher to RF Media Laboratory, Oulu Southern Institute, University of Oulu, Ilieska, Finland. Before that, just after finishing my PhD, I joined DRDO, one of the laboratories of the DRDO at Dehradun, called Instruments Research and Development Establishment, and I served there as scientist C during July 2004 to June 2007. Before that, I was a PhD student at IIT Delhi, and prior to that, I served as a junior research fellow at the School of Environmental Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. So these are all about myself. Coming back to the undergraduate teaching assignments, I have been involved in the teaching of the Preparatory Physics 1 and Preparatory Physics 2. For the BTech course, undergraduate BTech course, BTech first year, I have been involved in teaching the Physics Paper 1, Physics Paper 2 and Physics Laboratory. Now at IIT Patna, these Physics 1 and 2 have been merged to Physics, only one Physics course. I developed 2 courses, one for BTech second year students, optics and lasers, and for that is called as a science elective. And for third year PhD BTech students, I developed a course called engineering optics. These 2 courses are very attractive for the undergraduate students, and every year I see number of students joining with this course in large number, more than 70-80 students. I also teach a course called PS609, which is Fourier optics and holography. This course is for MSc students. This course leads towards the research, so holographic applications and applications of Fourier optics, this they undertake as their future course of action. So coming back to the classroom session, I have opted the topic called interference of light wave. What happens in the interference of light wave? If we use 2 conventional light sources, like 2 sodium lamps illuminating 2 pinholes, we will not observe any interference pattern on the screen. What happens actually? In a conventional light source, light comes from a large number of independent atoms, and each atom emitting light for about 10 raised to power minus 10 seconds. What does it mean? It means that light emitted by an atom is essentially a pulse which lasts only for about 10 raised to power minus 10 seconds. What does it actually mean? It means that even if the atoms are emitting under similar conditions, waves from different atoms would differ in their initial phases, because the phase relationship will be there only for 10 raised to power minus 10 seconds. It means for 10 raised to power minus 10 seconds, there will be interference pattern, there will be a fixed phase relationship, but only for very short duration of time. It means interference pattern will keep on changing every 10 raised to power minus 10 seconds. It means interference pattern is changing every billionth of a second. What does it mean to our eye? Our eyes are sensitive to a change which occurs 10 times in a second. More than that, our eyes cannot detect. So, we will not be observing any interference pattern. What we observe is the uniform light. It is similar to what we see in the alternating current, which the frequency is 50 Hz to 60 Hz, it means in 1 second the power is going on and off for 50 to 60 times. To our eye, what it appears, it gives us a uniform light. So the same thing happens in this case also. And this is the reason we say that interference of light will not take place if you are using two conventional light sources. But in principle, yes, but we are not able to achieve, we are not able to visualize those interference patterns because we don't have that kind of detector to detect that. So what is the solution? So it is difficult to observe interference pattern even with two laser beams unless they are phase locked. So we have to create a situation that the phases are locked, then only it will give you the interference pattern. So what is the solution? Solution is that one tries to observe, to derive interfering waves from a single wave so that phase relationship is maintained. There are two ways to achieve that. The first method we call as the division of a wavefront. In this case, a beam is allowed to fall on two closely spaced holes and two beams emanating from holes interfere and we obtain the interference fringes. The second method is division of amplitude. A beam is divided at two or more reflecting surfaces and reflected beams interfere. For the division of wavefront, very good example is the Young's double slit experiment, and for division of amplitude we have very good example as the Newton's ring or Michelson interferometer. So we will take one example each to understand the concept. How does it work? So look at this Young's double slit experiment. What happens in Young's double slit experiment? We have a natural source of light, or you can take the sodium vapor lamp, and the light is coming from this point, and we have placed two pinholes, what we have noted as the second screen. These are the 2 pinholes. So the wavefronts are allowed to pass through only these 2 pinholes. All the other wavefronts are being blocked. These wavefronts, after emanating from the pinholes S1 and S2, because they will maintain some kind of phase relationship since it is coming from the same low source of light, they will interfere and we will observe the interference pattern on the screen. The bright dark patches, and this is what we see here, bright dark patches. This happens only in optics, and there is a statement we call that the light added to light gives darkness, which doesn't exist elsewhere. We are adding light coming from 2 pinholes S1 and S2, but in the result what we see is a dark fringe. So this is why it is because of the interference, and it is because of the phase relationship with them. If no phase relationship, it means this bright dark patches will go away and we will observe only the uniform light. So look at some mathematical steps. Suppose S denotes the points, the light source, S1 and S2 denote the 2 point sources, and distance between these two S1 and S2 is small d, and we look at some string here at this position O, some arbitrary point P. Distance between O to P is Yn, and the distance between source and screen is capital D. So we have to apply the condition for the maximum and minimum path difference. So this path difference, the two wavefronts S2P minus S1P, when the path difference is equal to n lambda, it will give you the maximum brightness or maximum intensity, and if it is odd multiple of that, it will give you the minimum intensity. So we can do some algebraic manipulation for this S2P square minus S1P square. It is like A square minus B square. So we can write it in terms of A plus B into A minus B. Do these algebraic manipulation, and what we get is, it comes out to be twice Yn by S2P plus S1P. We do some approximation here, and that approximation is that if this distance Yn and the small d, they are much smaller as compared to the capital D, which is the distance between source and screen, we can very well assume that, and these terms will be neglected, and we can write instead of twice, we can write this to be as S1P as twice D. So 2 and 2 will be cancelled, what remains is Yn d by d. So Yn we can denote by this expression as because S2P minus S1P is equal to this will be equal to n lambda. So we can very well write the expression for Yn, it becomes as the n lambda d by d. What this expression tells us, this tells us the position of the fringe pattern on the screen. So and n is the count. So one fringe, two fringe, third fringe, fourth fringe. If we take two consecutive fringe patterns, say yn plus 1 and yn, this the location of these two fringe patterns, n plus 1th fringe and nth fringe, take the difference between these two displacement term. So it comes out to be n plus 1 lambda d by d minus n lambda d by d. This will come out to be beta is equal to lambda d by d. This expression beta, we denote it as the fringe width, and what to be noticed here is that this fringe width is equal to lambda d by d. The term n has gone, it means which fringe you are talking about, it doesn't have any importance here. So it is independent of the number which fringe we talk. So this fringe width is same for all, and it depends only on these three parameters: lambda, which is the wavelength of light; capital D is the distance between source and the screen; and small d is the distance between two pinholes. So this is what we have in the Young's double slit experiment. This experiment can be used for many applications. This is one of the beautiful experiments of optics, and it can be used for measuring the very thickness of thin mica sheet or anything which we cannot measure otherwise. So optics has the benefit of measuring or precision measurement. Another examples of this is the Lloyd's single mirror arrangement. What happens in this case? We have a light source S, and it is in such a way that some wavefront is falling on this mirror and some wavefronts are going reaching directly to the screen. So the wavefront reflected by the mirror will interfere with the direct wavefronts, and we will obtain the interference fringes. So in this case, to an observer, what the observer will not be able to see the source is, to an observer, they will see a virtual source that is S prime. And what happens, one more important thing to notice here, that because the light wave will be reflected from this mirror, which has a different refractive index from the higher refractive index, so there will be a pi phase change into that, and due to that pi phase change, the conditions for maxima and minima gets changed. So condition for maxima, which was supposed to be S prime p minus sp equal to n lambda, this becomes the condition for maxima. For minima, and the odd multiple of that, n plus half into lambda, this becomes the condition for maxima. This is happening because of the pi phase change introduced by a mirror. In another example, this is what you can see, this is where the actual fringe pattern will form. In another example, suppose the Fresnel's double mirror arrangement, if you use two mirrors and light is coming from the source S, so the light beam will be reflected by the first mirror and the second mirror, and both the reflected wavefronts are going to interfere and give you the interference fringes. In this case, both the wavefronts are getting reflected, so the conditions of maxima minima gets again altered, and it remains the same as the S2P minus S1P is equal to n lambda. That becomes the condition for maxima. So this is another example to understand this concept. Another example is Fresnel's biprism arrangement. In this case, we have two prisms, they are attached together at very small angle, and we have a light source, and the light will be passing through these two prisms, and as a result, you observe the interference fringes. You can use a lens to visualize to the observer. You can locate the position of the lens to L1 and L2 positions, and you can see the interference pattern, and you can calculate those distances D1 and D2 corresponding to the two locations of the L1 and L2, and we can very well calculate the wavelength of the light through this Fresnel's biprism arrangement. So all these examples which I have talked about, they are based on division of wavefront. Second topic is about the division of amplitude. So one of the examples is the Newton's ring experiment. In this case, what happens, we have a light source, light is coming from this source and goes to a glass plate. That glass plate will reflect the light, And here is the Newton's ring basic experimental arrangement. We have a flat glass plate and a curved glass plate or a lens. So light beam will pass through these two elements, and they will be reflected from the flat surface, and the reflected beams will interfere and observer will observe the interference pattern. Due to this experimental arrangement, what kind of fringe pattern we get is basically a circular fringe pattern, and the important things to notice in this circular fringe pattern, and as you can see that the first fringe what you have seen here is the fringe width is larger, then second the fringe will become sharper and sharper, and the radius of the circular fringes are going to increase as you move from the center to either side. So this experiment is again used for calculating or measuring the wavelength of the light source depending upon the thickness of the air film between the flat glass surface and the lens what we have. We can very well calculate the conditions for Riemann. So radii of rings vary as the square root of natural numbers, and this is why you have seen that, and the radii increases. So between two dark rings there will be a bright ring whose radius you can very well calculate by this expression, m plus half into lambda r square root of that. So one of the examples is suppose the wavelength is 6 into 10 raised to the power minus 5 centimeter. Capital R denotes the radius of curvature of the lens, and Rm denotes the radius of the ring and the fringe pattern. If you can place the whole setup in a liquid of refractive index n, then this R will vary, will also depend upon the refractive index value. So this is about the Newton's ring experiment. So now I'll move to the third part of my seminar, which is on my research work. So I work primarily in the field of applied optics, and very narrowly I can say it is optical information processing. There are three branches I can say which I have been contributing. One is the information security. In this case we deal with the encryption, decryption, watermarking and authentication. Suppose you have the input data, suppose it is the IID Patta, we can encrypt, and the encrypted image will be a noisy pattern. But in case of authentication, if they match together, we obtain a correlation peak. Second part is the pattern recognition. There are three geometries in which I contribute. One is the van der Rohe correlator, second one is joint transform correlator, and third one is hybrid correlator. It's a mixture of the joint transform correlator, and some part is done digitally. So what this technique actually tells, if we have two patterns, if they match together, if they match very well, we obtain a correlation output or autocorrelation. Otherwise, if they don't match, we don't get any correlation output. Third area is the digital holography. In this case, this digital holography is a kind of holography. In this case, the recording of the interference pattern of the hologram is done on a digital camera rather than on a holographic plate. So in digital holography, this can be again used for imaging purpose, recognition purpose, and also in security purpose. These three areas I contribute. There are other application areas where these principles can be used. The benefit of the digital holography is once you record on a digital camera, then we can use the conventional method of communication information, and you can send the information from one place to anywhere else in the world. So coming back to the why optical security, where I have been contributing for last many years, people talk about the digital encryption technique, and they will ask you that why optical security is important and why we should go for the optical domain or optical technologies. Optics offers parallel processing. On the other hand, this digital techniques does the serial processing. They have limitation. It offers difficulty of unauthorized access and copying the information. Optics offers high space bandwidth product, well-known thing. Possibility of including biometrics such as fingerprint, iris, face, you can include. It has several degrees of freedom like phase, wavelength, spatial frequency, state of polarization, angular momentum. These concepts can be used for encoding the data. It is very well suitable for the processing of two-dimensional data images and suitable for securing holographic memories as well. So there is a natural match between the optical processing of for optical communications. The basic scheme of the optical security is called double random phase encoding. We have input information to be encoded. We place a random phase mask. These two functions will be multiplied together once we illuminate it with a coherent beam of light, and this lens performs the optical Fourier transform. In the Fourier transform plane, we place another random phase mask, take one more Fourier transform. It is like taking two Fourier transform gives you the image back. But in this case, the image is not the original image. What we get is a noisy pattern, and this noisy pattern is technically it is considered as the stationary white Gaussian or white noise. This is what the basic concept of the double random phase encoding is, which started in 1995, and now it has gone into large number of transformations. Various concepts have been used in state of Fourier transform. Fraction Fourier transforms have been used, Fresnel transforms have been used, Derivative transforms have been used. One of the applications, one of the schemes which we developed at IIT Patna, I was showing that in that case we used a LED light source as a partially coherent beam of light, and what happens in the optical techniques of the information security, that the decrypted quality image is degraded due to one of the major reason is the speckles generated due to the laser light source. So we moved to the LED light source instead of laser, and for maintaining this security strength, we used the polarization encoding, and also we have used a QR code, which is a binary code, quick response code as the information container. So this was carried out optically. So we have to use two spatial light modulators. These are liquid crystal device, pixelated device. The basic thing what we have to do is that it has to be done pixel to pixel matching, and we have applied here the exclusive OR operation to perform that. These are some of the results, like plain text means the original data or original information. It is encoded into a quick response code. This is the encryption key, and you have the encrypted image. If you use the correct keys, then this is what we have. This is a green LED source with the white LED and also with a laser. The second one, what you see is with the incorrect keys, so original information is not decoded. This is one of the results. So that is all from my research part, and the last part is the achievement part. So here I must let you know that I have been I was appointed as associate editor to Optical Engineering, a very prestigious journal published from SPI USA, for last serving the society for last 60 years. I have been recently also appointed as new editor to editorial board of Optical Information Processing and Holography. It's under the frontiers in photonics. I have already served as the academic editor to the signal processing during part of this the Scientific World Journal during 2013 to 2016. I have served as the school director to ACRB supported school on modern optics and in applications during December 2015, and I have been a convener to a conference to the recent advances in information optics and quantum optics in 2014, November 2014. I am an advisor to the IIT Patna student chapter of OSA. It is this chapter is fully run by PhD students or undergraduate students. They help organize many activities under this chapter, like organizing lectures or inviting people from abroad, from within India. OSA supports the travel grant from the people traveling from abroad. I serve to various journals as a reviewer, like published from journals published from OSA, SPI, Springer, Elsevier, IEEE, IEEE, Hindawi, MDPI, and so on, so forth. So far I have guided 6 PhD students. Citation index is 2649, H index is 30, item index is 52. I have authored a book called Optical Crypto Systems, published from Institute of Physics, Bristol, UK in 2019. I have published, have authored or co-authored 72 international journal publications and 22 national journal publications, international conferences presentations 111, and national conference presentations as 72. Number of invited lectures is 38 within India and also abroad. I keep on writing scientific articles in Hindi magazines also, and there are 10 papers in various Hindi magazines. Last year my name appeared in the world's top 2% scientists list in optics. This was published from the Stanford University. I was awarded this best teacher UG spring semester 2020 in the physics department at IIT Patna. I received this award as the India Top Cited Author Award in 2019 as an author of one of the top 1% most cited papers in the last 3 years. I have been designated as Outstanding Reviewer from the Journal of Optics for the year 2016. I received one educational award in 2015 from the Advanced Optics. Under this category, I was supposed to get equipments worth $500. I was designated as senior member from SPI and OSA in 2015. This is the book which I have authored for the benefit of the audience. I am just showing this about this book. So thank you very much for your kind attention.